Thank you so much for joining me today for our monthly mindfulness class. I'm Bud Wassell. Appreciate you and appreciate you coming and taking part in this. A while back, we changed that from what was called monthly or refresher mindfulness. Now it's monthly mindfulness. It's always on the second Wednesday of the month, at the same time. So if you have any questions or if you need that invite or you want to forward that to somebody, you can always find it on LMS. And my contact information is there. And also my coworkers and colleagues, Gail Cole is our supervisor of employee wellbeing programs. I'll go over those at the end as well. Vivian Burgle, a colleague for EFR specifically. And we have two health coaches now, and I'll have a slide on that too. Carly Smolik and Kristen Turnbull. So today it's really all about flourishing. So on the next slide, just asking yourself, what does it mean to you to flourish? And if you want to use the chat, I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. But the idea for me, as I put this together, is flourishing is not just about happiness or finding happiness, although that's nothing wrong with that, of course. But flourishing is really beyond that. And if you look at some of this brief definition, to grow luxuriantly or thrive, or then synonyms, grow, thrive, prosper, develop, just different ways to think about this. And I think the difficulty that we find ourselves in these times of kind of uncertainty and all that's going on in the world around us and in our jobs and in our home lives, there's just a lot going on. There's a lot of stress and there's a lot of anxiety and there's a lot of just uncertainty. So how do we flourish amidst what I've sometimes talked about? If you've been to some of my classes before, you might recognize this VUCA, which stands for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And basically what that comes down to is it just really means that all of those factors really make it difficult for us to flourish. They make it difficult and they make things very stressful. They make us feel overwhelmed and they make us kind of really yanked around by all that's going on in the world around us. And so if you're feeling that way, I think we all kind of can relate to that. So we're kind of swimming upstream. And then also we have the negativity bias, which I've also talked about in the past. And that simply is that the way that we've evolved evolutionarily is that we've evolved in a way so that our brains have had to adapt to threat in our environment. And, if you look at all of human history, our modern human history is really just sort of a drop in the bucket. But our brains are still hardwired to focus on threats and negative events. And so we tend to really focus on things that are not going well. And it's easy for us also to get wrapped up into that kind of vicious cycle of negative thinking, especially when we're triggered by outside events. I mean, just turn on the news and you're going to feel a lot of that happening, that VUCA happening, as well as the negativity bias. So if you're feeling that way, don't feel alone. I think we're all feeling that way. I'm going to mute everybody, but you can feel free to unmute. And you can also use the chat feature, by the way. And as I mentioned in the very beginning, we are recording this. So I'm going to post the recording as well as the slides. If you like the slides, I do have some links and some detailed information later. That's going to go on Thrive on the intranet, and you'll find this information under live and recorded resources. And if you have any questions, just let me know afterwards. So anyways, it makes it difficult when we're dealing with this kind of environment, right? So what do we do? Well, very simply, the first thing, which, and again, I've talked about this, is that we just need to begin to remember to pause. Take some purposeful, intentional, mindful pauses to really set aside, even if it's just a minute or more is better if you have some breaks in your day, but even a minute to do, and I'll give you some examples of things that you can do to try to stop that cycle, to try to stop feeling overwhelmed by the VUCA or the negativity bias or all that's going on around us. Once we can do that, that can help us put us in a better frame of mind or a better kind of lay the foundation for flourishing, which I'll get into. So first thing that you can do is anchor or ground yourself. And again, very simple kinds of techniques. What I'm talking about here is kind of getting out of the head and into the body. So when we anchor ourselves, we feel the body's contact with the ground. We feel grounded. We feel our feet on the floor. And you can do this as I'm talking, we can feel the body resting in the chair or the surface beneath you. You can feel the support of that chair. You can even kind of let go of any resistance and let the body sink into the chair a little bit. Let your feet really connect and feel grounded on the floor and realize that that is your contact with the earth. And you could even imagine roots, like in this picture here, roots growing from the bottom of your feet, really connecting you to the ground. So other ways to ground can also include the sensation of your hands wherever they are resting. So even if you're driving, for example, you could feel the hands gripping the steering wheel and feel that sense of touch. You could feel your butt in the chair, your feet on the floor, wherever you are. You can do this standing in line in a grocery store. So lots of different ways to ground yourself. And again, what this does is kind of get us out of the head and into the body. You can also use your other senses to ground yourself. You could ground yourself with the sense of hearing, so sounds that are in the environment, or even the sense of taste. If you're eating something or drinking a cup of coffee or tea, you could ground yourself. You could really use that whole experience to ground yourself. So these are simple, quick ways that you can do. And I really encourage you to try several of these during the day so that you get in the habit of doing these. Then, of course, we have the breath. And again, simple, easy techniques. Talked a lot about this over many of our sessions, but there's lots of kinds of breathing. So I would say pick one that works for you. Even just simple deep breathing can work. And we know with the breath, that really helps us regulate our mood. In other words, when we're stressed, our breath tends to be shallow and rapid, right? Or when we're, feeling that tension, that's how the breath gets. So we can lengthen the breath. We can take a deeper in breath and then a really long, slow out breath. That's really key. Take a long, slow out breath to any kind of breathing. But there's other kinds of breathing. There's cyclic sighing, there's box breathing, there's, I've gone over these in previous classes, but pick one that really works for you. And I'll give you an example of two of those. So the cyclic sighing is a 2-part in-breath. So you breathe kind of halfway in, filling the belly, and then all the way in, filling the chest, and then hold, and then open mouth, sigh, a long sigh, letting all the air out of your lungs. Again, 2-part in breath. And just feel the tension and stress release as you breathe out. Another kind of breathing is you can count the breath, so in other words, count to 4 on the in breath. Hold it for 4 to 6 if you can. And then as you breathe out, really long, breathe out to at least about 8, 7 or 8 if you can. This takes a little bit of practice. So breathe into 4, hold for 5 or 6, and then out for 7 or 8. And again, it helps to do a few cycles of this kind of breathing, and it also helps to train your body when you do this. So I've heard people say they do this when they're waiting, to go to the dentist or, even in the emergency room or some stressful place like that. And they use the kind of breathing that works for them to kind of just steady their mind and their body. And that brings on that But it takes away and counteracts the fight or flight reaction to stress, and it brings on the parasympathetic part of our nervous system, which is the rest and digest. And it just helps us calm our mind and our body down. So breathing really helps, obviously. Then, of course, there's everyday mindfulness. The stop technique is just a simple kind of stop, take stock of where you're at. T is to take a deep mindful breath or two. O is then observe what's going on internally. What are you thinking? What are you feeling? What's going on in the body? And then the P is proceed. After taking a few mindful breaths, proceed. And that kind of shifts our awareness. Everyday mindfulness is paying attention to what we're doing while we're doing it, those routine activities like hand washing, but there's so many other things that we do. Great opportunities to return to the present moment by paying attention, again, to what we're doing while we're doing it. If you notice, like, for example, if you're brushing your teeth in the morning, you're not really thinking about brushing your teeth. You're thinking about what's going to happen later in the morning, or what do you got to do? You know, your mind tends to do that. It problem solves and it goes off on its own. Take those moments just to focus in on the act of brushing your teeth or washing your hands or whatever you might be doing. And try different activities on different days and get into the habit. These informal mindfulness ways are great ways to strengthen your own mindfulness in the moment. And that can really help us at work when we've got a lot of other things going on. Now, this next healthy mind platter, this kind of gets us more into the flourishing aspect of things. This is a good representation of, obviously, a lot like the healthy food platter, where you need all elements of that to have a healthy diet. So with the healthy mind platter, this is from Dr. Dan Siegel. He says, obviously, there are things we know about, sleep, obviously, physical activity, connecting time, social time, those we know are all important. Focus time. So if you focus in on an activity, a hobby, or something that you really like to do, that's important as well. Playtime, just that's obvious, having time to really enjoy what you're doing. Downtime, kind of doing nothing. And then that time in is the meditation, or could also be things like prayer and other kinds of times where we're really just reflecting on ourselves. It could be a gratitude practice. That's another way to do that. So maybe think about what's one or two areas that you might like to strengthen on your own healthy mind platter, and make that a goal. Small, make really small, easy to achieve habit changes. If it's, doing something a little more physical, if you haven't done a lot of physical activity, just start small. Or if it's the mindfulness and time in, maybe just these brief informal practices or breathing or grounding things that I'm talking about. A lot of us don't have as much playtime, especially during the work week. So maybe that's something you want to do, and try to find ways to put a little more happiness and joy into your day. So these are key dimensions of flourishing. These are from an article that, if you want to read more on this, there's a link here when you get the slides. But just to kind of go through each one of these kind of quickly, there's psychological flourishing. So sort of embracing who we are, and that self-acceptance factor, but also self-actualization, being the best that we can be, growing to our full potential, finding meaning and purpose. Why we do what we do, what's important to us. There's skipping to the emotion, or rather to the social first. That kind of gets into our attachment style with our primary relationships in our family and friends, for example, but how we relate to others in general, and really prioritizing quality in our relationships rather than quantity. Research really suggests that deep emotional supportive relationships contribute more to well-being than a large social network. And kind of focusing on nurturing a few strong connections rather than spreading yourself too thin. This can also be found in engaging in shared activities, whether through hobbies or volunteer work, group gatherings, those kinds of things, and simply being present in conversations. And I think you'll find that strengthening your mindfulness capabilities will help you be more present in listening, mindful communication, and just being present with others. And then going back to the emotional flourishing, this can include your own self-awareness, right? Your sort of you can think of it as emotional intelligence, but also that includes self-regulation. So being aware of our emotions, but being able to manage those emotions in a way that we're have good regulation, good control of those, and that they're used in appropriate ways. And that, of course, includes being aware of others' emotions. And this gets into things like empathy and really understanding where other people are at, kind of listening on that deeper level, kind of reading between the lines and understanding what people are feeling, and not just what you're hearing on the surface. And then there's contemplative flourishing. And again, if you want to read this in the article, it goes into it more deeply, but the contemplative flourishing, so mindfulness and meditation, is really what we're talking about when it comes to our class. And this particular class, by the way, is sort of a precursor to a 5-week class that I'll be starting next week, and I'll give you details on that too. But the contemplative well-being includes these here. So, we think about focus. We've done some specific classes on focus itself. Whoops. And what we're really talking about is how do we increase our ability to focus, despite the fact that there are ever increasing, attacks on our attention, really. There are so many different ways that we feel that our attention gets hijacked by our smartphones, by any other devices, or the news, or whatever it might be. We just get too much information, and it's easy for our focus and our attention to be scattered. And that's kind of what I was talking about before when we were talking about the VUCA. That really scatters and erodes our attention. So strengthening that really helps. And then also expanding our awareness, being open in a more, so that we can see the bigger picture. So we can be focused when we need to be, but we can also be open and receptive to the bigger picture, to seeing what's going on around us in a more complete way, if you will. This all kind of sets the stage for the flourishing part. And then the third part is awe and self-transcendence. So seeking out moments of awe. So whether, realizing that there's a lot more, there's this huge amount of what's going on, that sort of that we're part of something far greater than ourselves, right? So whether it's nature or art, meaningful experiences, or faith-based, it might be something related to that as well. But cultivating the sense of wonder so that we kind of are more aware of that on the higher level. All of these things contribute to flourishing. And again, there's this particular article focuses in on, the link here focuses in on contemplative well-being. So having said all that, it kind of sets the stage for our meditation today. And again, if you haven't been to one of our sessions, pretty much the similar flow. We do some basic, easy practices or quick practices in the beginning, talk a little bit about the theme, and then we do a full meditation. So we're going to do that now. I'm going to try to incorporate the different elements which the upcoming class will include. And that includes awareness, which of course is strengthened by our basic mindfulness skill. And that, just focusing on the breathing and focusing on our own internal experience increases our awareness. So that'll be part of it. Also, insight, being aware of what's going on in the mind and the body, gives us insights. And then also, we're going to focus on some connection, people that are important to us, as well as gratitude for that, and then purpose. So, kind of encompasses the four, what you might call the four pillars of flourishing. And I'll show you that, how that plays out in that upcoming class that I'm talking about. So let's do the meditation. And to begin, all you have to do is find a comfortable position. So take a moment to adjust. That might mean stretching a little bit if that helps. If you're feeling a little bit tense, or if you've been in the same position, you might want to do some gentle, mindful stretches, just simply paying attention to what it feels like to loosen up some areas that might be tense. Feel the stretch gently. And then, as a way to begin to relax the body and the mind, just letting the body settle into a comfortable position. You can close the eyes or keep a soft gaze down in front of you if you prefer. Feel into your body. Allow yourself to be connected and grounded, sensing your feet on the floor, your body in the chair, and just really feeling that embodied experience of that contact with the world around you. Feel your breath now. And let's take 3 nice long deep breaths. So breathing in deep and breathing out long and slow. A couple more times. And just as you breathe out, letting tension release, letting the shoulders drop and relax, letting the body soften, letting the jaw relax, letting the muscles in the face relax. You might bring a slight half smile of kindness to your face and see how that feels. Kind of sends a signal to the nervous system to relax. You can feel its warmth and friendliness as you do that. And just let that spread down through your shoulders, into the chest and heart area, all the way down into the belly, down into the legs and feet. Feel that connection again, your feet make with the ground, allowing the whole body to relax, continuing to breathe. Let's just do that for a few moments. Just breathe on your own, nice, natural, and easy, paying attention to the sensations of the breath, being aware. Now, what are you aware of when I say that and leave you with a little silence? You might notice some thoughts. You might notice something going on in the body, maybe a little itch or a little pressure or something, maybe an outside sound or whatever. What do you notice? That's awareness. That noticing part is you being aware. Now, paying attention to noticing thoughts that are here, we can't stop our thinking. So just being aware of thoughts as they come and go, and see if you can just notice them coming and going without getting caught up with them. You don't have to engage with the thoughts. You don't have to do anything with them. Our usual way is to react to a thought and to problem solve or analyze. Now, all I want you to do is let them kind of flow on by, sort of like bubbles, you know, bubbles floating on by or clouds floating by in an open sky. Don't have to do anything with them, but just notice them. And you might notice some thoughts are more compelling and they do kind of hijack our attention. And if that happens, that's okay. If you get lost in a kind of train of thoughts, that's perfectly fine. Noticing that, being aware of that, simply let go. And then you might imagine them drifting by like a leaf drifting away on a stream, and return to the breath as an anchor to anchor your attention, or the feeling of your body sitting. Now, you may notice that your thinking sometimes brings up a stressful situation, and if that's happens, that's okay. We can actually focus in on that a bit. Again, not to problem solve or fix, but just to observe. There's a stressful situation that comes into your awareness. That can trigger a swirl of thoughts or emotions and assumptions to see if you can observe what your mind does. Just sitting back with a little bit of distance, just watching and observing thoughts, what emotions. You might also see how that plays out in the body. Don't judge it. If you notice a judgment or opinion arise about it, just let it go, especially if you notice like any shoulds coming up. They should have done this or they should have done that. Just see if you can notice that, let that go as well. And being aware of that stress, see if you do notice where you feel it in the body. Sometimes we feel it in the chest or the shoulders or the belly or the jaw. Just notice. This is the insight, noticing sort of those patterns of thought, noticing how they play out, what emotions arise, how they play out in the body. And you might see if you can welcome the stress and recognize it's a response to something that you care about, something that's important to you. What is at stake here and why does it matter to you? And as you reflect on the stress and its importance, maybe there are other people who are involved. Maybe there's someone who was supportive and helpful to you in this situation. Maybe someone you sought out to for help or guidance or advice. Take a moment to appreciate and be grateful for the people in your life who are supportive and care for you. And this could be anyone, by the way. It could be even be a pet. Okay, very good. Let's take another deep breath. We're going to shift gears a little bit. Nice deep breath in and out. And now take a moment to recall a time when you felt inspired and passionate. It doesn't have to be anything big, like a big event or achievement, just something where you've really felt good about yourself. What memories come to mind? Time maybe when you felt engaged and inspired, connected. Again, it doesn't have to be anything big. All right. So just take a moment to reflect on that. In these moments where we feel engaged or inspired, often it's because we're doing something we particularly care about. Does it connect you in some way to a deeper purpose or calling? And whatever you notice here is okay. We're just experimenting a bit. Sometimes it connects us with that sort of bigger purpose for us that brings us a little bit more meaning, what's important to us. Maybe it's family or work or something you're doing that's important to you. All right, very good. Now, before we wrap up, let go of that reflection and just simply connect with your breath. No need to change your breathing. Just simply notice how it feels to breathe. Purpose can feel pretty abstract, and we can get lost in all kinds of ideas of who we are and why we exist. So it can help us to reflect on these moments in our own life where we felt a strong sense of purpose. And this kind of helps us bring things down to earth. So just continuing to breathe just at a natural, easy rate. For now, just don't do anything. Just breathe, just rest. Be here with the breath and the body. Be aware of what's going on in this moment. And as we come to a close, perhaps making an intention to bring this quality of awareness or insights or gratitude for others as you re-engage with the day. And slowly beginning to rise from the meditation, slowly opening the eyes, maybe stretching a bit, moving the body a bit, kind of reconnecting with your surroundings. And I thank you for your presence and for practicing with me for that particular meditation. Um, Love to hear if you have any thoughts or comments or questions. Please feel free to use the chat. What did you think? That is a bit of a precursor. Again, please feel free to put any comments in if you'd like. That is a precursor for this course that I've been talking about. It's called Flourish in Stressful Times, and you can sign up on LMS. It's going to be Tuesdays at 12 to 12:45. It's not every Tuesday, so take note of that. Starting on Tuesday, the 17th of June, the first class is going to be expanding on what we did today. So the first class is on all about flourishing itself. And these will be recorded also and put on that same place. Second class on July 1st is on awareness. The third on July 15th is on connection. July 29th is on insight. And August 19th is on purpose. Now we're going to be using the Healthy Minds app. This is it's a great app. It's completely free. I've been using it actually for a few years now. It's a really terrific app. And they go into these 4 different areas. So it's a great way to practice on your own. And I would encourage you to, I hope you can join me, but if you can't, that time conflicts. As I said, I'm going to be recording all these. So, and these are all, this class included, all qualify for the Know Your Numbers credits. So thank you for these comments. Good, much needed during a stressful week. Excellent. Loved it. Cleansing. Very good. Very relaxing. Thank you. Yeah, so someone's asking about the focus training. Yeah, those are all on that same live and recorded resources page. If you go to Thrive, and you'll see when that opens up, on that main Thrive page, you should see live and recorded resources. If you click into that, you should see all of the things that I put up and recorded. But if you have a question, just let me know. Great comment here. Needed to reconnect with myself. I've been scrambling with work and family issues. Yeah, that's such a great point. We often are scrambling with so much that's going on in our lives. So these are great little practices. So hope you find this inspiring to continue doing some ongoing practices. So just to wrap things up, I've got a few slides on EFR. See if I can advance here. So the EFR program, just a reminder, provides counseling and work-life resources and other services. So you can initiate it a couple of different ways by calling that toll-free number 24/7, or you can go on the website, the Carillon Wellbeing, to start. It also has a lot of great information on that website. And well, before I move on, that's all free and confidential. So to open to all employees. Every employee who gets paid by the health system can use this, as well as your dependent and household members. This is provided by an outside company called Carillon, and they now have a new app. So you can download the app. It's really identical to that website, but you'll have it on your phone. And you can do all these things. You can start the counseling if you want, right? Can initiate the request for that. You can connect with legal and financial experts. There's a lot of well-being articles, videos, and podcasts. Find local childcare, elder care, pet care, all that kind of stuff. And all you need to do is go to the App Store, either the Apple or the Google for Android. So I would say the best way to do that is search for Carillon BH, which stands for Behavioral Health. And it's free. They're going to prompt you, once you load it, it's going to prompt you for your employer name, and you would put in Yale New Haven Health System. And then it should come up fine. If you have any questions, let me know. But it's really nice. And I do have a whole page of meditations on there, and you'll see that. So you can go right to that and access those. But there's, like I said, there's lots of other terrific information on there as well. So other services that we do, just so you know, we do webinars. So I mentioned the Flourish thing coming up. We have these monthly mindfulness that you obviously do know about. And we do stress breaks for departments and units. So if your team wants us to come and do a 15-minute stress break, we're happy to do that. Includes a brief meditation or relaxation exercise and a little bit of an overview of our services. And so those are some of the things we're doing now. This is a change. Our Take 10 phone meditation, some of you may have actually been on earlier today at noon. We're still doing the same times, Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays at noon, and Tuesdays and Thursdays at 2. But we're now switched to Teams. We used to do it on a conference call line, and that was actually discontinued. And so our AT&T account, I guess, our corporate account, discontinued those access points. So we did them on Teams, and I invited people that I knew from our classes that we've given. So if you didn't get the invite and you want the invite, just let me know. I have not sent the invite out for Tuesdays and Thursdays yet. I'm going to do that this afternoon. But if you didn't get those, let me know, and that'll be on your calendar. Those are still 10 minutes. They're live meditations done by myself and a couple of other folks. So those are still going on. And as I mentioned, we do have 30 different meditations on this Carillon Wellbeing site, which will also be available on that app that I was talking about. And then we still have this phone number, which has 3 pre-recorded meditations. Hopefully that's still active. It should be. I'll check that, but it should be. So that's another quick way to get access to 3 pre-recorded meditations. We still have this app. This is called M Life. If you don't already have that, you do register through that same Carillon Wellbeing site, and they have all different kinds of live and on-demand mindfulness and emotional well-being courses. And so, just as an example, this strategies to reduce stress is a on-demand course. The classes are really like brief. They're like 15, 20-minute classes. So you can really break them up to whatever meets your kind of schedule. So you might want to check that out. And then I did want to tell you about this is new, Thrive Health Coaching. Those are the two health coaching I mentioned up front, Kristen Turnbull and Carly Smolik. And these they provide free, confidential, one-to-one wellness coaching on these different topics that you see here. Okay. So if you are interested in that, they're getting busy. So if you think you're interested, I would contact them sooner than later so that you can get on their calendar. They do this by kind of virtual sessions. They can meet people if you're able to do that, but I think most of them are going to be virtual video-based sessions. And to request that, go to thrivehealthcoaching@ynhh.org. Okay. And then this is the Thrive, so you recognize that if you haven't been there. If you go under departments and communities, under T, you'll see Thrive, and that opens up to this whole honeycomb. The EFR information is mostly under, it's all under my well-being, but there's also a section called live and recorded resources, and that's where I put up anything that's recorded, gets posted there. So I will post this class later today or tomorrow, as well as the slides, if you had to leave or if you want to see the slides and have all those links. So I see a couple more comments there. Let's just go to that. So this is a good question. How do you add to know your numbers? So that is, you have to, when you do know your numbers, when you register for that, you register on the Personify. Now, I believe that information is also was mailed out, but you can also find that under the My Health section of Thrive. There's also an article when you open up the intranet, you'll see it's one of the main sliding articles at the top, and it'll tell you exactly what you need to do, but you have to, create your account on Personify, and then it'll show you, once you do, you have to do the biometric screening, and then there's what they call personal choice activities. For my classes, all of these classes count count as $100 per class, up to 200, so up to 2 classes. And all you have to do is personally attest to that. You don't have to actually, show a certificate of attendance. You just enter it in, say the class that you attended, I believe, and then, you basically digitally sign that you attended the class. And that gives you the Know Your Numbers credit. I hope that answers your question. I'll be on after I stop the recording. But any other questions before I stop? And we'll stop the recording now. As I say, thank you very much for joining me. Appreciate you coming. And let me go to that, stop the recording, and see if you have any questions. Thanks so much for being here. Really, really do appreciate it.